we want to be able to update and delete tasks and lists. So that's what we are going to do now. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go to the BOEM documentation and find the documentation for dropdown. So we want to create a dropdown that has two options, one to delete and another to update. So let's grab the code for this and let's copy this one here. Okay, and let's go to our app code and let's go to the task view .html and let's go to the tasks section here, and we want this section to be right aligned to this title. So we want to have that drop down here. So let's create some markup for that. So to do that, what we can do is we can create top bar and we can copy this and we can then put here this drop down here. So what we can now do is we can now see how this looks, and we can see that we now have this here. And now what we can do, first of all, let's remove this, we don't need this. And we can go to the styles now. So task view.component.scss. We can go to the task list container and we can nest the top bar styling in here, top bar, and we can say that the title has flex grow 1, so that will take up the remaining space. And let's say this is display flex. Save that and let's go to our app. There we go. So we now have this nice drop down here. That's pretty cool. But we do have one issue with the positioning. Let's try and fix this. Let's go to the drop down menu. Okay, yeah, so it's because there's some sort of margin. Alright then, so it's because of this top bar here. Let's go to tasks. So what we have to do is go back to the styling and let's just set the title here to have no padding. Okay, we're still getting that issue. I think it's because of the margin. Yeah, okay, so it's because of the margin. So let's set the margin to 0. And there we go. So that looks a lot better now. Okay, so that's great. So now we just have to move this margin and move it in here. Save that. Okay, so that looks a lot better. And let's also put some margin here. Margin bottom, 20 pixels. There we go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. One thing that I've noticed is that for some reason these lists aren't always loading. This is probably because of the interceptor. So let's go into the code and let's look at the interceptor. Let's go to the interceptor again and let's see why it's not working. So we are returning this dot refresh access token, and then we are piping switch map. Okay, so I think I know why this is. It's because when there's a request that has the 401 status and this dot refreshing access token is true, then this code won't run and that whole request is kind of ignored and not retried. So we have to find a way to retry that request when the access token has been refreshed. So that's what we should try and do. And the way that we can do that is by using subjects, which are a sort of observable. So let's do that now. So we have to create a subject here. Okay, so let's call this access token refreshed. There we go. Okay, so save that. And down here, what we have to do is the first thing we want to do is actually remove this. Okay, so remove that and then go to this method here. Let's put an if statement here. So this dot access token refreshing access token, and then we'll put this code within the else block. Then in here we want to return an observable, so return new observable, observer, there we go. And here what we want to do is we want to do this dot access token refresh dot subscribe. Okay, so this code will run when the access token has been refreshed. So here we want to call next. So dot next, and we want to complete this observable as well. That's all we have to do, and that will provide the signal to then rerun the request. So that should be it. Let's save this and see what happens. So save that. Let's go back to the app, and it still seems to be happening. Okay, that time it worked. So maybe it is fixed. Let's try this again. Let's go and click cancel here. And that seems to work. Let's now wait a few seconds and see if it works again. Okay, so let's click cancel. And we have that list here. Great. Okay, so it does seem to be working. Great. Okay, so let's close this and hopefully we don't have to open it again. Now let's finish doing this. So let's go back to that code. It's fastfood.component.html, and let's call this settings. We could actually just not use text, and let's just use that icon. So let's instead use this font awesome icon. There we go, that looks pretty good. And then we want to have those two options in here. One other thing I'd like to do is set this so that this drop-down content is right aligned, not left aligned. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, we can do that. So we have to add the isRight modifier for a right aligned drop-down. So we have to set that to the drop-down. So let's do that. And there you go. Okay, so that looks a lot better now. Cool. Okay, so let's go back and let's create those drop-down items. So here we just have text, but we want these sort of items here. Let's look at this code here, and let's copy and paste this. Let's copy and paste it and put it in here. Let's save this now and go back. And we now have these nice menu items, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's clean this up a little bit. So let's remove these and let's just keep two of them. Okay, and let's rename this to edit. And let's put in delete here. Save this now. And we now have these two options here. Has text danger. There we go. Okay, so that looks a lot better now. Now we just have to create these actions. Okay, and we can see here that this isn't loading, so something's gone wrong again. So this looks like we have to go and look at the web request interceptor again. Okay, so let's see why this isn't working. Okay, so this isn't working, and this is because we haven't pushed any values to this subject. So let's do that, and we have to do that here. So let's do this here, this dot that subject dot next, and then that will call that subject, then this code will run. Okay, so let's save this now, and let's go back to our app, and this seems to be working. Okay, hopefully that will continue to work now. Okay, cool, so that's pretty good now. Now let's create these actions here. Let's go back to the code, let's close this, and let's create the delete action. So click, and on click we will call the on delete list. Click. So this button will delete the list. So let's save this now and go to the TypeScript file. What we actually want to do here is store the list ID of the currently selected list. Selected list ID will be a string, and let's just save that. And here we will set that selected list ID. Okay, cool, so that should be it. And let's now go here and let's create that method. Okay, so now let's go to the task service here, and let's create the delete list method. String return this dot web request service dot delete, and using template strings, lists slash, and then the list ID. List ID. There we go. Okay, so that should be it now. Let's go back to the task view.component.ts, and now let's do this dot task service dot delete list, and then pass in the ID. Selected list ID. Great. Okay, so save this now, and let's try it out. Let's go here and let's click delete. Okay. It's still here. And it's for some reason redirecting us. Oh, okay, so it's because we haven't removed the href. So let's do that now. Let's remove this href here. Save that, and let's try that again. Let's click delete, and let's refresh the page. And it's still there. Okay. Oh, okay, so we actually have to subscribe to this. That's what I forgot to do. That. Okay, so here we can just do console.log, and let's get the response, and let's log that response. That's what we were missing. Let's click delete, and we get the response which contains the deleted list object. So now we can reload the page, and hopefully this shouldn't be here. Okay, so it's not there. Great. Okay, so now let's go. So here we can do this dot router, and we first have to get the router. So let's do private router type router, and let's do this dot router dot navigate. And let's just pass in slash lists. Okay, so now let's save that, and let's now create new list, and let's say test, click create. So now let's try and delete this. Great, okay, and we were redirected back to slash lists, and there's no lists showing up here. Great, okay, so let's try that again, once more. Testing again, click create, let's try it and delete it, and this should go away. So click delete, and it's gone. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so now that's working. That's really good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create the edit action. So let's go back to the code, and for this we actually want to create a new page. So let's go to the terminal here, and let's create a new page. Component, and then we will put this within the pages folder and we'll call it edit list. Okay, and that should come up here. Over here, let's go to the HTML and let's go to the new list and let's just copy and paste it. Let's change this to save, and let's say this will be update list. Right, okay, so that's pretty much it. Let's now go to the routing module and let's create that route. Okay, so slash list ID. Okay, let's save that and go back here. And now what we can do is we can go to the TypeScript file and create that method. And we want to subscribe to the parameter changes. So for that, let's go back to the task view.component.ts and let's go up here and let's just do a copy and paste of this. Let's inject the root. And let's get the params from here. We don't need that. We don't need any of this. We do, however, need a field that stores the list ID. And we can just do this.listID, params.listID. Okay, so that's all I need now. So then here, we want to call the task service to update the list. So we can go to the task service now. And we can go to create list and we can just copy and paste this to update a list. And we'll get the list ID here. And here we'll call this update list. And here we'll do a patch request and we'll pass in the title. So let's get the title here. And lists, let's use a template string and do lists slash and then ID. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's close this now and go back to the component class. And here we can then get that service. So private task service. And we can now do this dot task service dot update list and pass in the list ID, this dot list ID, and the title, which we passed into this method here. And then do dot subscribe. And then here we want to navigate to the task view for this list. So let's get the router, private router, and let's do this dot router dot navigate, and let's navigate to slash lists slash the ID, so list ID. And that should be it. So let's save this now and let's go to the app and let's go to slash. Okay, well first we have to create some lists. So test list, create that, and let's create a second one as well. This is another list. Create. Okay, and let's try and update this one. Okay, so that didn't work. Oh, okay, so that's because we have to get rid of that href. So that's something we didn't do. So task.component.ts, task.component.html, I mean. And then we can get rid of this href here. Save that and go back. And we can now do edit. And we can't set anywhere because we have to actually set the router link here. So let's set that to slash lists. What was the route that we called it? Okay, yeah. And paste it in here. And we now need to get this list ID. So let's actually use the property binding square brackets version of this. And let's pass in the array. And we'll put this in quote marks. And we just need to pass in that. And then we'll pass in the list ID. So the selected list ID. Save that now. And let's see if this works. Click edit. And there we go, that worked. So new list name. Let's click save. Okay, so we've been sent to the login page and there seems to be an error here. So we get this error and it says that there's been a HTTP failure during parsing. So that's because there isn't JSON, there is just text that says OK. Okay, so we should actually change the API here and we should actually not send status, but do send, and then we can send a message that says it's been updated successfully. Let's save this now, and this should now work. So let's just try and do this again. Okay, let's go to slash lists. Okay, so that actually did update, by the way. So that did work. Cool. So let's try and change this again. So let's click edit and let's type in, this is the updated list name. Let's click save. And there we go. Okay, so that works perfectly. Great. Okay, so that's good. And let's try and do it with this one as well. This is the second list. Click save. And there we go. That looks pretty good. So now we can delete and edit these lists. Great. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to do the same things for the individual tasks. So for example, new task. We want to be able to click some sort of button that would enable us to delete and edit this task. So let's create that now. So let's first of all go to the task view .html, and what we want to do is we want to go to the task elements. So we want to put some more markup here. Let's create a div with a class of task text, and let's move this into there. And we then want to create task buttons. Okay, and then in here we want to create 2 buttons. So let's create those. That looks good. Let's, instead of putting text in here, we can put some sort of icon. So let's create that icon. We will have an I tag here with the class of font awesome solid dot font awesome trash. I think that's the right one. Let's save that. There we go. That looks good. So that's the first button done. Let's create the second button. Okay, so here we have the second button, and what we want to do is we want to change the icon. There we go, that looks like a better icon. And we also want to put some spacing. Okay, so we want some spacing, so let's go to this button and let's set some margin. margin left, no, right 10 pixels. There we go. Okay, so we've got some spacing now. And we now want this to be on the same line as the text. So let's try and implement that. So let's go to the styling for task view. And let's go and find the task class. Where is it? Task class. Here. And in here we can create some nested styles. So task text. Let's set this to flexbox, and let's set the task text to be flexgrow1. There we go. Okay, so that's a lot better now. And let's also create some styles for that. But one thing I do want to do is center this vertically. So let's center this vertically. We can do that using justify content center. What was it? Justify items. This has to be display flex. And this has to be content. There we go. Okay, so now that is now centered. We don't need this justify content, but we do need this line of code here. Okay, so that's brilliant. That's now centered. And it still works. We do have the issue of these buttons having that stripe through though, so that's an issue. One way we can fix this is by putting task text here, so that this will only happen with task text. I think this should now work, and there we go. So that works perfectly. Great. Okay, so now what we can do is we can put some styling on those task buttons. And we can say that they aren't visible unless this task is being hovered over. So in here, we can put task buttons, and we can set this to be visible. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now let's have a transition for that. So set the opacity to 0.2 seconds. I think I need to put this in here though. There we go. Perfect. We can also set transform as well. So transform scale, let's say 0.5. And we can set the transform here to transform scale 1. And we can set the transition as well, transform 0.2 seconds. There we go. Okay, that looks a lot better. We can also set this to 0.8. That might look a bit better. Cool, so let's set this to 0.85 and that should be perfect. Okay, cool. So there we go. We've successfully created these buttons here, and we can still click to complete and uncomplete the task. Great. Great. Okay, so now we want to create the methods that run when we click these buttons. So let's create the delete one first. And quick thing before we do that, let's just change the ordering of these buttons because I prefer it to be this button to be the rightmost side. So let's just change this a little bit. Let's move this up here. Save that. And there we go. Let's just change this to left. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's now create a method for this. So click, and we'll set this to on task delete click. And we'll pass in the task ID. So that's going to be task._ID. Okay, save that and go to the component class. And we can copy and paste this. On delete task click. and we'll get the ID. And then we have to create the delete task method. So let's go and create that now. Let's go to the task service and let's create the delete task. So let's copy and paste this. Delete task. We'll get an ID and then we'll do delete /lists/ID. And then I think it's /tasks/ID, right? So let's go to the API to confirm this. Let's go to delete. Yeah, so it's /list/list_ID/tasks/task ID. So we need the ID of the list and the task. So list ID, task ID. List ID will go here, /tasks/task ID. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. Let's go back to this file here and let's go back to the method and let's pass in the task ID. Oh, I think we've changed the wrong one. If we go back here, yeah, okay, so let's just rename this one to that and let's rename this to task. Okay, so let's go back here and let's go here and pass in the task ID. And then we don't want to navigate away. Let's just for now console log the response. Save that. Go back to the app and let's go here. Let's get the console up and let's click on the delete button. Okay, apparently that was the wrong method call. Oh, okay, right. So let's just change the name of this method. When we call it over here, let's just paste in that. Okay, so let's just save that now and go back. And let's go here and click the delete button. And it says completed successfully. And we get this document here that has the deleted task object. Great, so now when we reload the page, it shouldn't be there. Great, okay, so there's no tasks here. Cool. So next thing we have to do is make sure that when this task has been deleted and we get the response, that task is removed from the tasks array. So let's do that now. We have the tasks array here, so we need to remove that task. Let's do this.tasks. And then we'll do filter, and then we'll get the callback function, which will be the value. And we want to return true when the value._ID isn't equal to the ID passed in. There we go. So that should filter out that task which has that ID. Okay, so let's save this and go back to our app. And let's see if that works by creating a new task. New task. And let's try and delete it. Let's try that again. Okay, so let's check why that's not working. Let's change this to when it's equal to, and let's see if that works. Okay, that's still not working. Okay, right, yeah, okay, so it's because you have to do this.tasks and set that to the return result of this. So let's just change this back, save that, and let's try it again. And there we go. That worked perfectly, and that has now filtered that out. Great. Let's try and create multiple tasks and see if it works with that. Test 1, create, test 2, create, and test 3, create. And let's try and delete this one. So there we go. That worked perfectly. We're able to now click on the delete button, and it gets removed. There we go. That's great. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to update these. We now want to create the edit page so that when we click this button, then we will be taken to the page where we can actually update this value. So let's go back to the code and let's go to the terminal and let's create the new page. So let's just call this task ng generate component pages slash edit task. Press enter, and let's go to the new page. And the first thing we want to do is go to the routing module, and we're going to create this new route here. Okay, save that. Close this now, and we can now go to the app and try it. Slash and then task slash. Let's try that, and there we go. Okay, so that page now works. Let's go to this list component, the edit list component, and let's copy this and paste it in the edit task component. And we can just change the name of this method, change the name of this. Change this. And then we can now go to the component class, and we can actually go to the component class of the edit list component and just copy and paste this stuff here. So let's just do that. Let's just copy all of it and go to this component class and let's paste it in here. Let's change this to task ID, and let's get these imports. And change this to task ID. We don't need this one. Here we can do task ID, and this will navigate to /lists. Okay, yeah, so we do need the list ID. So let's just copy and paste this and get the task ID and list ID. Okay, so here we will we'll create the method. So here we are calling the update task method, which we haven't created yet. So let's create that now. Let's go to the task service and let's create the update task. Let's just copy and paste this one, change the name, and we'll get the ID, the title. Okay, yeah, so the task ID and the list ID. Okay, so here we want to do this dot web request service dot patch list / list ID / tasks / task ID. And that's all we have to do. Okay, so now let's go back to the component class and let's pass in the task ID and the list ID. This dot list ID. There we go. And I think that should be it. One thing we probably didn't do right though is we didn't set the route parameters correctly. So let's go to the routing module again and let's make sure that these are correct. Okay, so we need the list ID and the task ID. So what we can do is we can delete this one and we can copy and paste this route here and then do /edit task / and then the task ID. We have to change this to the edit task component. And now we have to actually get this save button working. So let's go back to the component. Okay, yeah, so that should work. So, okay, no, but that has to be changed to task. Save that, go back. So now let's just go back to this view here. And now we want to make sure that this button will link to that new page that we've created. So let's do that now. Let's go to the task view.component.html, and on that button we want to set a router link, and this will have square brackets around it. and we'll set this to the array containing /lists /lists, and then we'll put in the list ID. So list ID, selected list ID, selected list ID, and then we'll do /tasks. Then we'll get the ID of the current task. So task._ID, save that, and that should now work. So, oh no, that has to be, save that now, and go back. Okay, now I think it's just task, there you go. Still getting an error, cannot match any roots, list /ID /edit task, and then we're gonna do /edit tasks. We might not need this slash here, so let's just remove that, and let's see. Okay, there we go, that was the issue. Okay, we are now taken to this page, and we can try and update the task name. So let's just say it's updated task, click save, and there we go, we've successfully changed the title of this task. Brilliant, so let's try and reload and see if it stays updated. Great, so that's been updated successfully. Let's try again. Second time this has been updated. Click save. There we go. Great. Alright then, we're basically finished with this application. But there are a few things we have to do before this application is complete. So stay tuned for the last video of this series.